Good morning and welcome to Talking Point here on WESN, the content capital. I'm Keaton Shaw, welcoming you to another edition of the program this morning. And what a weekend we had here in Trinidad and Tobago with this morning report of the total number of murders that we recorded over the weekend, amounting to just about 18. Ladies and gentlemen, the reason why I am just saying murders is because, and just about 18, is because we also have more police-involved shootings, which obviously will lead to investigations, and then from there we'll take it. But apart from that, the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, he finally made some time for us. He made an appearance at the Piarco International Airport before his trip to Suriname for, of course, CARICOM Heads of Government meeting. And then, of course, we got some more news related to national security, not from the National Security Minister, but from a former Commissioner of Police. So, we have a lot to discuss this morning. Let me not waste time in introducing my co-host and colleague, Mr. Sean Michael Small. Good morning, Sean.
Okay, so I know that we have a lot of, it was the irony, of course, let me not waste time to introduce and then you introduce, so there's a disconnect on the meaning there.
Let me not waste time in introducing.
Oh, well,
yeah, I know.
Anymore before.
English language is a funny thing.
Yeah, it is. But I know we have a lot of other important topics. One thing that we didn't necessarily plan to discuss a lot that I think we'll just touch on, I don't know when we'll get to this, the SCA results.
Yes.
And I think ultimately speaking, now it doesn't prove anything definitively, but it sure as hell strengthens the argument for those parents who fought hard and protested for kids to get back into school. I do also, however, wonder to what extent, again, the result will imply something, but did the system give 100% effort in order to try to put the best foot forward for online learning? Now, in some cases, not all students did, and that's understandable because I myself, at tertiary level, found it near impossible for me to try to mentally deal with online-only classes, at least with a full work schedule. Maybe if I didn't have a full work schedule, it might have been different. For primary school students, that is facing such an important exam, this might be an experiment that we will never want to repeat ever again, so to speak. But I do also have to ask, besides the students, what about the teachers? Did all of the teachers put their best foot forward? The thing is, though, given the results, I'm not sure. I do wonder to what extent we will analyze this as a case study. Because obviously we know that there won't be, all teachers are not going to be great or perfect or excellent, right? Just law of averages said you're going to have some mediocre teachers, but the results imply with whatever was out of whack was seriously out of whack with this year's SCA.
Well, nevertheless, ladies and gentlemen, we once again repeat what we said on Friday morning at the beginning of the show. Regardless of the outcome, the opportunity is there to make the most of it. Each and every student has the capability. You just have to put your best foot forward now. And of course, we congratulate you and wish you all the very best in your journey ahead, continuing, of course, climbing the ladder. But as my co-host pointed out, it's something that we must discuss. Unfortunately, we have to pause on that.
Yeah.
Because there's, as I said, discussing with you last night in planning the show. And of course, I had a conversation with Kemiel, who will be joining us tomorrow, by the way. There was so much. We were trying to decipher exactly what we were going to speak about this morning. But of course, after hearing from the Prime Minister, considering what the last month has accounted for in TNT, with the situation surrounding the Attorney General, with the situation surrounding Foster Cummings, with a tropical storm warning that somehow just blew over us, thankfully, and a lot more taking place, he made time for us before he made his next trip to Suriname. Now, I'm not saying that these trips are not necessary. And at the same time, the Prime Minister has every right to look after his health. But it's how do you speak to a nation? And how do you try for a nation to understand that situation with all that is taking place, and yet we hear from you for about an hour at the Piarco International Airport?
It's like when a child does something wrong and the parent is like, did you do that? And the child was like, no. So the Prime Minister started off the press conference basically saying, well, it seemed as though a lot of people scheduled, important international events at around the same time. So I have now arrived and I will be leaving shortly. It was quite funny. There was zero arrogance at the very beginning, zero fire or rhetoric, whatever. It was very much almost as though, I'm not saying that he did anything wrong, but even I guess he and all realize, this is not ideal. At the very least, this is far from ideal. Not only is he gone for so long, but so many important things are happening, so much so that the acting prime minister, we're not accustomed for the acting prime minister to have to be at the forefront to this extent, right? Where, to what extent is he actually having to run the country in a significant way, as opposed to just being the guy that stewards, that oversees, and caretakes the seat before the substantial prime minister comes back. So, and it was implied by the Minister of Local Government, almost gave him the wrong portfolio there, that it was implied that the Prime Minister was consulting with the disaster response ministerial team, which included the acting Prime Minister, or at least included his participation. He only came in the second press conference. He wasn't there for the first. But be that as it may, the Prime Minister did go into a lot of different topics. I don't know if he was trying to just throw stuff out there to get the public aware, maybe to as a mea culpa, or maybe just because he knew he had a brief window and he didn't necessarily want to be accused of neglecting his duties. So obviously one of the big ones, but in a strange twist, is it that big of a deal anymore, is with regards to COVID-19 and the mask mandate. So let's get the first clip of the Prime Minister where he goes into that, because he has some interesting language there.
Coordinating our efforts in the winding down, I hope, of our pandemic responses, because so far we have been fortunate in that the Omicron variant has not been replaced by any more deadly one. I think there were one or two variants that appeared, but they have not been of great concern because they have not shown to be more dangerous than Omicron. It is possible that a significant proportion of the population has by now been exposed to, and many persons have had their bodies responding to the virus, and that is a natural immunity with a strain that had not been as deadly as the earlier strains. Thank God for that. I did mention yesterday evening that it is our intention, given what we have experienced and what is happening around the world, that we now can begin to remove one of the last vestiges of the pandemic, which is the mask that we're wearing. And the Minister of Health will confirm it is our intention to remove the masks, the mandatory requirement for masks by the middle of this month, and make it voluntary. But there will be some areas where there will be some strong recommendations that, because of those what's happening in those particular areas, it would be useful to have the mask voluntarily used. So we can look forward to that, barring any unforeseen surge in any new variant. We should be taking these masks off by the middle of this month, which is next 2 weeks, and that would be a great signal that we have survived, I dare use that word, that we have experienced and have come through a very frightening period. Coordinating our efforts in...
So the Prime Minister went on to explain with regards to the political situation with COVID and how we managed to come out of the pandemic. But I think one of the interesting things is, why are we going to have to wait 2 weeks if you're going to have a list of recommendations, but these recommendations, for all intents and purposes, aren't enforceable? Now, I get it. There are fears of COVID spiking in South America, different parts of the world. There's expected to be a spike in the 4th of July. However, I don't think the virus is in the same place that it was this time last year. And more importantly, at the end of the day, we're going to have enough exposure risk. I don't think it's going to mitigate too much. I will just say things like supermarkets, banks, retail outlets where there's a lot of strangers from different households that might be in close proximity may be there. Obviously, if you're outside or if you're at a hairdresser, dental appointment. I mean, it all depends on the medical office as well, right? But things that are more one-on-one, that are more controlled, is it as necessary? I'm not too sure. Schools, maybe, but the way how these variants are, they're more infectious anyway, so the benefits are marginal at this point. But yeah, why wait 2 weeks? Why not just say it now?
Well, I'll be very honest with you. A couple of things. First of all, credit to the Prime Minister where credit is due. At the press conference, he covered multiple topics, including crime, including the Attorney General. He even went after the Law Association, and he made time for COVID-19 as well. How do I view this? First of all, the mask-wearing mandates, as allowed for by public health regulations, were due to come to an end on July 31st. So to say that we will be, hopefully within 2 weeks' time, removing this mandate makes not much sense to me. It doesn't make sense to have it now, but then when it's ending on the 31st, does it make sense ending it in the middle of the month? Whilst I think there's so many angles that you can view this as, without trying to politicize the situation, I believe, in my opinion, it was, whilst you were trying to speak about COVID-19 and not stray too much away, I think it was a bit of a distraction from the core issues that are affecting us. Yes, I said it before, he made time to address other topics, but I think this was minor. So great, wonderful, the mask wearing mandate will come to an end in 2 weeks' time and it becomes optional, simply because the 31st was due to come to an end, but it doesn't make sense now. All well and good. I just think it was a bit of a distraction. Because if you realize what we did here this morning, and we did the right thing by reporting it to you, which you probably would have already known. This press conference was on Saturday. We've had 2 days since. Essentially, it's the first thing that we covered this morning, and I don't think it was the most important. But nevertheless, it is something that we have to report on.
So next, the Prime Minister did speak on food security and, our food security, as well as to some extent regional. So let's hear what he had to say with regards to the agricultural sector.
With respect to the agriculture forum from Guyana, which we all participated in, there's a follow-up meeting to take place here in Trinidad on the 18th of August, I think, because we are organizing that meeting where we hope to interest those persons in the Caribbean and Caribbean friends in finance who can see our initiatives as opportunities for investment, because without significant investment to put in the preparation and the execution of the food production, those raw materials, talking about the corn, the soya, the wheat, the rice in the various areas, it's not going to happen. Because the scale at which it has to happen, significant sustainable investment, attractive investment opportunities have to be there. And if we are in fact to seriously impact our food security nervousness, we have to get into serious production. And that is an area that is a very high priority, which we're trying to move it from talk to action. As you know, it has been a lot of talk for decades, but I think the rubber has hit the road now. We're trying to buy food. Not being able to buy it has frightened very many people who will just prepare to talk about it or to rely on our small-scale peasant-type agriculture and family farm-type agriculture. We need to get beyond that. I mean, for example, you know that Trinidad and Tobago is self-sufficient in chicken, poultry, and we consume a lot of it. What you may not know is that we can only do that on the supply of regularly imported boatloads of American grain. They fed those chickens that we eat at the various locations, fed by American corn and American soya. The oils that we use, the various food oil, edible oils from American grain. And as the markets go up there, we import, the price increases here. And we are not in a position to replace those imports with current local production, especially on the scale at which we're consuming them. So we either have to change our consumption patterns and the items we use, either part way or whole way, or produce more of those items that we have been accustomed to use. I can tell you, fortunately, that the trials in southern Guyana have been very successful in rice production, in corn production, and soya production.
So here's the thing. I don't necessarily think that this is a distraction, because our food security situation right now feeds into, one could consider, the crime situation, right? And the uneasiness and the unrest. I wonder if this is basically, a symptom of the issue that the Prime Minister was absent for too long. And now he's trying to weigh in on important matters. It's just that we needed to hear these things a week or two ago and not right now. So he has these things, he's leading with these things. These are important things where government policy rarely make a difference. The mask mandate, that's something that probably could have happened last month, maybe even a month and a half to 2 months ago. With regards to agriculture, so he's warning us, and he's trying to give us, okay, these are the reasons why local production is only going to do so well, blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, to what extent is he really reassuring us that, well, there's light at the end, there's light over the horizon? To be fair, it's an external thing, but ironically, this is where you need to show leadership more. When there's little you could do, how do you bolster the confidence of people to stay the course and to try to hold out and not despair and not give up and not resort to crime? Leadership, encouragement, motivational speaking, for lack of a better word, things that I'm not necessarily sure is associated with our political class, generally speaking, much less with the Prime Minister.
Now again, the Prime Minister addressed the topic. You have to be fair to him and say, okay, fine, well done, fair enough. However, if you listen to the language that he used, it seems as though it's nothing of great concern to him right now. Maybe I'm being unfair in making that statement, but I'm just analyzing it from the language that he used. To add to that, when he spoke about chicken and poultry, we are a net importer of poultry products. Between 2016 and 2020, we spent over $112 million US importing chicken. Because without the imports, because he spoke about grain.
Yeah.
He spoke about grain. We are not self-sufficient to feed ourselves with chicken on the market alone. We actually have to add to that with imports.
I'm assuming then that will include things like processed foods, chicken nuggets, chicken strips, boneless breasts that's board processed, etc., etc.
That's poultry and poultry products.
And I think we underestimate the amount of those products that's going to come to a lot of fast food restaurants, as well as just dining in restaurants, that I don't know if Arawak supplies. I know they supply the largest fast food chicken brand in the country. To what extent do they supply all of the chicken needs of that brand?
Well, apart from chicken, you're speaking about, people are now fearful about the rising food prices, and people have been fearful of that for quite some time now, because over the course of the COVID-19 pandemic, with limited supplies coming in due to importation and the lack of containers available, that was one aspect of it. Now we're just seeing it go up due to global inflation, due to many other factors, not just the cost of imports. So people have been worried about this for quite some time now. To say that the rubber has now hit the road is a statement that you could have been making 5 years ago. So again, the Prime Minister addressed the situation, but to what extent does it give us any sort of hope, more than the fact that you realize in your capacity as Prime Minister, you have a duty and a responsibility to speak to the people of Trinidad and Tobago? To me, it just does not add up. And to be quite honest with you, we all wanted the Prime Minister to speak to us, but it was nothing of substance. I am waiting until the end of this week, According to Minister of Trade and Industry, Paula Gopi-Skun, the government will be announcing plans by the end of this week in order to inform us as to what policies they are implementing in relation to food. As it relates to farming, again, everything that you said there is nothing new to us. We've been living that life for how many years now? Decades, perhaps. So, to come and say the rubber has now hit the road, listen, I can only hope and I can only pray. And I say hope and pray based off a history that we get something of more substance, something that we could say, okay, this is a great idea. Okay, we know what direction we're moving in. Okay, we know what we need to implement and what we need to do. I hope we get some ideas soon because we're running out of inspiration. We're running out of hope. And I'm not wrong in stating that. Speak to any man on the street and they'll tell you.
So, again, I would say he's about 2 weeks too late. I think we probably wanted a follow-up from Paula Gopi-Skun, Minister Gopi-Skun, last week with regards to what she was doing in terms of monitoring price of flour, price of staples, because the implication is other staple goods were going up. Groceries in general are going up. I know some of my friends have been complaining for the last week and a half with regards to grocery bills, as well as the fact that certain conditions have impacted their earning potential. So it's a double whammy for some citizens right now. Not just that they might not have necessarily lost their job, but their income has been affected as prices are going up. Now, it's interesting. So he's late with this. Meanwhile, he runs interference. He runs interference for the ongoing situation with the AG, and he runs interference by basically attacking the Law Association, which they did when the Law Association criticized the public health regulations and the fact that they said, well, we will go into your house to break up private parties and private residences. And he said it there and he said it again. He verbally attacked them. To what extent? I don't know why he felt it was necessary. I get it. A motion of no confidence from the Law Association is not the most compelling thing in the world. But you yourself don't need to basically attack them in such an irrelevant way.
Putting a pause on the Law Association for 1 second, let's look at the fact that the Prime Minister actually, well, it seems as though he denied that the Attorney General was actually disqualified from the Miami courts. In fact, his exact quotation from the conference is, and I quote from the Prime Minister now, I don't know about any automatic disqualification. I know about a recusal, and I'm staying right there, end quote. But the comments and the release by the Attorney General 2 weeks prior to you making that statement, Prime Minister, actually completely says otherwise. So I am absolutely what were you reading before making such a statement?
Ketan, I'm telling you, this was the speech he planned to give 2 weeks ago, and he's late. That's the only explanation.
Well, you're perhaps right in that instance.
That's the only explanation because, it's one thing to say, reports about the ruling contradict the Prime Minister's statement. It's the next thing when you realize, wait, the AG himself, who the Prime Minister is trying to defend in now a not so successful manner, refutes the defense his own boss is trying to put forward for him. Only Trinidad, you know.
What we also need to understand is that the Prime Minister obviously was there to do damage control. And what the Prime Minister did was make the situation worse by making such a foolish statement. It was a foolish statement because it does not align with what the Attorney General released in his statement. He said, I tried to correct the sworn affidavit. Unfortunately, it was too late. The Attorney General basically admitted, yes, this is what has happened. But he tried to clarify some details further. So by doing that, he's made the situation a lot worse. The Prime Minister is denying this because he's denying it out of politics. Simple. It's his Attorney General who he appointed, 2 months ago, 2.5 months ago? On top of that, on top of this mounting of issues, the Prime Minister at the same time also needs to understand that attacking the Law Association
Yeah.
is pathetic.
Yeah.
Especially when you're bringing up the instance of a matter involving yourself and the Chief Justice that happened years ago. Man, you're Prime Minister, you're a leader. You know you're going to face many, many criticisms. You know you're going to face many situations, many conspiracies. Okay, great. If you can't address them and you don't want to address them, move on. Forget about it. This happened years ago.
The thing is, when your first defense is to attack the veracity or the integrity of the person who's criticizing you, as opposed to the claims that they're making. Because to what extent did he really try to counter their claims? Not really, I would say. Look, he even got the technical terms wrong of the facts of the matter. When you're doing that, it begs the question, you're not prepared to enter this debate with the Law Association, because all you could do is say, they're foolish people. Not that they're wrong. He's literally he skipped that step for the most part, and he's basically saying they're irrelevant, they're foolish, we should build a wall. Like, that's not an argument worth having in a debate when you attack the messenger and not try to discuss or counter the message involved.
Because we do have our criticisms of the Law Association. No doubt about that whatsoever. However, again, in your position as leader, man, listen, move on from that instance. There's no need to bring that up once more. In fact, the comments in relation to Section 34 by the Attorney General and the Prime Minister were not even necessary in this debate.
No, that's the Attorney General trying to say, right. No, we're not that.
And
unfortunately, the comparison with his situation in Section 34, he can't just discard that or push that to the side just like that. It's already there.
The Prime Minister brought that up once again on Saturday. Listen, I'm not saying that I was expecting any different. I'm saying I was hoping for something different from the Prime Minister, but I am not entirely surprised because we have unfortunately grown accustomed to this.
You were hoping for change, but you're not surprised at a lack of change. I have one more clip. This one was important to me. It might not be the most important thing that he said with regards to most people, but to me, this, I think, the implications had me wondering for a while. We have a third clip with regards to what the Prime Minister had to say about international relations. Just a small snippet of it. If we could get that clip now.
Our march towards some element of increased production of gas and gas products here in Trinidad and Tobago and the region. And to the extent that what influenced us negatively then has been determined not to be a success in international diplomacy on the part of those who advocated those developments in 2019. Trinidad and Tobago's position has always been, we continue to hold those positions of how we should treat with the Venezuelan problem. We have been advocates for dialogue, and that dialogue is still the best route. And we have been finding some common ground and some support from areas where people have changed their position between 2019 and now. And as we went to the Summit of the Americas, you would have seen certain participants were there and some were pointedly not there. And certain conditions that were automatic in 2019 are now not positions that are advocated or defensible. And there are still changes to come because what exists now cannot be the status quo. And I can tell you from a number of high-level quarters, there are attempts being made to change the situation that exists now. And we in Trinidad and Tobago are not without some interest in that, and we are not short of advocacy on our behalf in these changes. So it has to work its way through the diplomatic journey, and that journey is in fact taking place.
So if you weren't aware, the Prime Minister was essentially referring to Venezuela, among other countries, but primarily Venezuela. Why does that matter to us? Oil and gas. Now, on one hand, there's some good news out of it when you see the oil and gas being our potential savior. On the other hand, this is just one more kicking the can down the road with regards to, well, diversification, well, food security. Well, it actually, and the two topics he almost kind of spoken to back to back. It makes you wonder, to what extent are you really giving consideration to diversity and food security by increasing local food production?
In relation to Venezuela and the...
Oh, well, there's the whole ethical issues with that, by the way.
Yeah, in relation to Venezuela, if the Prime Minister has taken a position and believes in that position diplomatically, I cannot fault him. If he has been advocating, because to a certain degree, he's right in relation to sanctions on Venezuela. There's a whole other story and debate we could get into, be it geopolitics, be it political ideology, political philosophy. Good boy, sounds like I'm doing my degree all over again. But no time for that.
Because basically everybody who was supporting Maduro's critics in Venezuela, those anti-Maduro protesters, they are more or less being, thrown on the bus by this action, whether or not you agree with Maduro or not.
But I've said it before in this program, and I'm not going to go back on what I said. I don't believe it's a critical issue for Trinidad and Tobago right now to be addressing the effects of sanctions on Venezuela. The aspect of it that the Prime Minister is hoping to benefit from, yes, that is the aspect that he's looking at. But that tells me, because we've been holding on to that for so long, and our fingers are crossed for that so long, maybe you need to just take a step back on that for now and concentrate on the other issues, the ones that are more burning and underlying.
And he also mentioned, I don't think it's the first time, but he mentioned again, at the summit, the Caribbean nations, he didn't necessarily go into too much details. They met with the President, Vice President, and the Secretary of State. They, for all intents and purposes, made demands. Maybe demands is too strong of a word, but they made some some very strong requests with regards to certain matters with the Caribbean. So to what extent is that a sign of our place in the geopolitical world? We kind of play, we kind of try to be neutral with regards to the major powers. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? It has its pros and cons. But yes, it'll be interesting if this is where his focus is, on the diplomatic front. And meanwhile, it's still going to take years for Dragon to be realized because, okay, we get approval. Then you have to put all the infrastructure in. You have to put rigs out there, pipes, etc. When is that going to be realized? We have a cost of food problem right now. And if we started 2 years ago, we would have at least be better off right now with regards to agriculture.
So, Prime Minister, here's one simple solution. Look at your food import bill and see what products on that are we importing in excess. That is not necessary. See what local food products that you can promote and advocate for, rather than all these wonderful products that somehow or the other make it to our shelves, whilst small businesses are struggling for foreign exchange. I can get into details. I can call some stores names. I can call some business names. But I won't do that on the program simply because we can get into trouble for that. But it's the reality of the situation. Quite frankly, I'm tired. When you go to the supermarket now, and you pick up all the items that are necessary. You could treat yourself to 1 or 2 items, but you pick up everything that is absolutely necessary. And you're finished cashing for it, and you look at the screen and you see your total. Mm-hmm. Boy, you cry. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You will absolutely cry. Because that is about gas for in my instance, that's about gas for about 5 weeks. In about 2 hours in the grocery, I spend gas for about 5 weeks.
I pick up a handful of things, it's $200. I don't know what else to say. No, not a week. Well, I remember back in the day, like $500 was weeks.
And his hands are not.
Worth of groceries.
And his hands are not that big, so that's a lot. That says a lot.
It's true.
Anyway, let me just give you the question of the day before we welcome our guest commentator in studio this morning, and that is because there's a lot, as I mentioned before. During these critical times in our nation's history, critical times, and you know what I'm talking about. What are your thoughts, your opinions on the Prime Minister's press conference? That is the question of the day. During these critical times in our nation's history, what are your thoughts and opinions on the Prime Minister's press conference? After the 9 o'clock news, we'd like to hear from you.
It was obsolete by 2 weeks.
Well, that's one aspect of it.
Obsolete? I'm just saying it's obsolete.
In certain instances, I hear your argument and I agree with you.
Worse than 2 weeks old.
Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to break now, and when we return, well, we will welcome our guest commentator this morning. Stay tuned to the program.
As I run through the day, there's one thing that I need to give me more smiles and motivation to lead, to make new memories and nutrition to grow. My Kiss Enriched bread, the best taste that I know. Fill your day with love, we deliver the best for you, all across the nation, to make your moments feel new. Fill your day with love, we bake the best bread for you. Inspiration to make those dreams come true.
Baked fresh for you every day and delivered nationwide. Kiss Enriched bread.
Fill your day with love.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Site, Thursdays at 11 a.m., only on WESN, Content Capital.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Let your voice be heard. Call Madam Fix It on WESN, the only place that effectively helps you with your woes. Having problems getting onto government agencies, water woes, NIS and pension problems, potholes, and much, much more. Call me, Madam Fix It, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right here on WESN. Let me fix it for you.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing now, Andre.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is it no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
I am Rondell Donowa, attorney at law and host of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Strictly Legal is a legal program geared towards informing you, the public, of your legal rights, responsibilities, and remedies. So be viewing Thursdays 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
If you live with someone who's tested positive for COVID-19 and has to self-isolate at home, take care of them from a distance and reduce their movement around the house. Give them space, a designated space, and open those windows. If you have to be in contact, mask up, both of you. If you work, stay home from work and don't go out. not even to the grocery or pharmacy. And remember, no visitors allowed. Limit the contact to limit the spread.
The Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross Society. Mission-based, people-focused, community-driven.
Welcome back to Talking Point here on WESN, the content capital. Joining us this morning once more is Acting ASP Ashraf Ali. Good morning, sir. Welcome back to the program.
Good morning, and it's a pleasure to be here again.
Well, we're very happy to have you here with us this morning, especially in light of, well, when I say very happy, it's good that we can talk to somebody about this situation to get a better understanding. But in that context, it's over 18 murders from Friday afternoon to this morning. 18 murders. The Trinidad and Tobago, I don't know if we're becoming, let's say, immune to the fact that, well, yes, you're right, numb over the fact that so much crime is taking place, especially murders. But at the same time, is the TTPS viewing this as just another day in TNT, or is this like a crisis situation for them?
Well, one murder is too much. We continue to say one murder is too much. And every time we have additional murder, it reflects negatively on Trinidad and Tobago holistically. Mm-hmm. At the same time, our statistics continue to rise. All right. There's not much that I could continue to say about statistics. Our acting commissioner of police has clearly articulated how statistics can be looked at. He did in fact indicate that we are not in a crisis situation per se, but from a general public perspective, the view from the outside over this weekend, which is about 19 murders, in between 18 to 19 murders, I should say, it's alarming for one weekend, right? And we must also consider that, and the TTPS is also considering that and how the public is viewing it. All right, so we are trying to our best to facilitate all those investigations and in fact take a grip on this situation. But we continue to say that it is not only the police responsibility. We are trying, we are doing what within our capabilities and what was our mandate to do, right? When you look at all those persons who normally put out and make comments about crime, are you all familiar with the crime prevention triangle?
No.
Right. The crime prevention triangle gives us three categories. We have what we call the targets or the victims, then the desire or the criminals, and then opportunity. Those three things make up the crime prevention triangle. And law enforcement officers, in order for crime to treat with crime, we have to treat with these three categories or the three areas concerned. Law enforcement is solely involved in or pay a lot of emphasis on opportunity to reduce crime, and opportunities such as our TTPS patrol strategy and how we utilize our patrols and our officers on the streets to alleviate the opportunities for crime. And if I would elaborate a little more on the patrol strategy, is that, normally you see police officers just driving all about in their vehicles, and then you have the public perception that the officers are always just driving and not doing anything at all. That is part of the strategy is as presence. You always have a police officer present on the streets. We try to be too accustomed that a police officer who's driving on the street, he's doing nothing. But if the officer stops someone on the streets and interacting with them, they shouldn't be talking to me. They should be going fighting crime. Mm-hmm. So how do we balance the public perception to that?
There's also an interesting thing. A lot of managers and businesses fall for this. Oh, my worker is doing nothing. But if your worker is in the service industry and police is a service, right, you have to be ready for an instance where the service is required. So you don't want all of your police officers to be busy with paperwork or etc. Oh, we have an emergency. Well, we're all busy. Why aren't some of y'all available? Well, don't complain when we're patrolling, being readily available to deal with emergencies. It's an interesting thing that people don't necessarily understand emergency responses to stand by until there's an emergency.
Exactly, and that is why the part of the patrol strategy now that we are implementing that bore fruit over the weekend, unfortunately it resulted in the deaths of 4 individuals as a result of a gunfight shootout with police officers, where we had police officers strategically located from Western Division to Port of Spain on static patrols, and as a result of the calls from command center relative to a report of a stolen vehicle, these units were able to respond in a very short notice because of the strategic locations they were placed at, resulting in the incident and the apprehension of those individuals, and 4 persons were shot in that instance. So notwithstanding the 4 persons were shot, we have to look at the level of response that was provided for an emergency of that nature, where we got a call from command center, and as a result of that, you had a very short window of opportunity for those individuals to get away with the crime. So we were able to bridge that, close that gap for the opportunity in terms of the crime prevention triangle, and we apprehended individuals.
Let me just ask you, before we get further into the conversation of police-involved shootings, these 18 murders that took place, is the TCPS equipped and resourced to investigate each and every one of them, rather than just label it as he was known to the police, he was a gang member, it's a gang-involved shooting, rather than just labeling it that? Is the TCPS equipped and resourced to investigate each case?
Yes, we are. Our Homicide Investigation Bureau have specially trained officers together with our Special Investigation Unit that has trained officers to deal with homicides. Now, the thing about it is that you would listen to the public, and it's rightfully so that you will get comments from the public, because the police service is not going to give out all information pertaining to the level of investigation and the type of investigation being conducted in these homicides. But when you listen to some of the comments that we will also take note of at the same time, is that persons would say that when we mention persons are known to the public, the next step or logical step from somebody the public, is that we go and arrest this individual just because we know that you are involved in it. Having knowledge is one. That's information. That's intelligence. In order for us to go before the courts, we need evidence. And we have to take the information and take the intelligence gathered and bring that into evidential value to be presented in the court. So yes, we may have information, or we have information of particular gangs that are involved, persons of interest, but the evidence that we need to put them before the court is where our investigation will lead to determine whether or not we can acquire sufficient evidence to build a case that when we go before the court, it can stand the scrutiny of the courts. And one of the things that we look at is that everyone in Trinidad and Tobago seems to know how the crime committed, who committed the crime, but when asked by the police, they have amnesia. Mm-hmm. No one knows anything at all. So we have no witnesses. We have nobody to corroborate what we have. Mm-hmm. And that is part of it. So now we go to the scientific aspect of it, where we're utilizing ballistics and our forensics side of it with ballistics, as well as DNA analysis. But then we have to start from scratch, because in order for us to build our DNA database, right, we need to get DNA to compare with. So yes, we will do our crime scene analysis and collect all the evidential values from these crime scenes, and put it into our database. But if there is no criminal element to compare it with, then we just have DNA but nothing to be compared with. Mm-hmm. Same thing with ballistics. If we haven't found a gun, then we cannot do. We could only say that this weapon was fired from a particular type of weapon. Sorry, the bullet was fired from a particular type of weapon. Unless we get that firearm to compare that this is the firearm that was used, that is where the challenges continue to be. But so our capabilities of building a capacity with ballistics and DNA is what we are doing right now.
I'm not sure if all of the reports for the shooting that involved police officers, if it was clear, because one of the initial reports basically just said that they were men returning from a party. So not everybody would, of course, keep reading the up-to-date articles.
Yes.
They were suspected to be involved in a crime. What exactly were they suspected to be involved in?
With the one that the 4 men
who were shot by the TTPS.
Okay, so they would have, that one is where they were involved in a report of a Lassie motor vehicle in the Western Division. Officers was in pursuit of those individuals. They abandoned that vehicle and went into another vehicle with other occupants, without their associates. Those are the individuals, those 6 individuals, was intercepted in Port of Spain Division by the officers, and 4 of those persons was fatally shot in that interaction. Then you have the other incident where 4 persons in Northeastern Division in the Maracas Bay area, Damian Bay, that was someone pulled up on the side of them and came out of the vehicle and shot 4 of the persons in the vehicle.
Yeah.
Right, and then we have the other incident over the weekend where it's where a vehicle was on the highway. The suspects had flashing blue lights and siren, pulled those persons over, came out of the vehicle, because the driver assumed that was police officers, pulled on the side of the street. One of the persons came out in what appeared to be police uniform, tactical wear, mask covered, approached one of the occupants, which is the passenger side, shot the individual and went away.
There's been a theory that perhaps some of the allegations of extrajudicial killings by the TTPS, particularly ones where witnesses very much decry the incident, if maybe, and there don't seem to be a lot of corroborating reports about it, if those were situations like you just discussed, where it was basically fake police.
Yeah, exactly. So
is that relatively common?
We have a lot of reports that persons would have indicated that the assailants were dressed in what appeared to be police-like uniform, right? And that is some of the things that these officers and the police service is looking into, because when you look at police uniform, there are multiple different types of uniform, and officers dressed like CID officers may not wear the full uniform, but they have emblems identifying themselves. Now, one of the key things is this that I have on my chest right now. The public cannot have this. So if you are not seeing this presented on an officer, then you can ask, where's your ID? These are some of the things that the public need to know. Even though you see me in uniform, I am still required to produce my Trinidad and Tobago Police Service identification card and produce a document, like see I have my identification card behind, right? As well as my badge.
But a simple basic thing like a police officer's number, which is located on a uniform, and if it's a plainclothes police officer, and the individual, let's say the common man, is now asking the officer, what is your number, and the officer refuses, what are the repercussions of such? Because if an individual makes a report on that, what does an individual face in terms of, what does an officer face?
Right, because he can be subject to disciplinary action, because you are required to produce and give the public your number, rank, right? Your number, rank, and name. They never said anything about full name. They said number, rank, and name, which is a title, right? For in my case, I would have to give my regimental number out, my position where I'm acting, and my name, which is Ali, right? ASP Ali, and I might go furthermore, say if I am a legitimate, where I am attached to, which there's nothing wrong to say where you're attached to, and treat with the person, because you're within your right as a law enforcement officer to enforce the laws, or at the same time inform the person that whatever breaches that they may have committed. So you're legitimate. If the public is of the opinion that this officer is not legitimate and they don't believe that it's an officer, then you ask. Now, he may give you a number or rank, and you take that, and you're of the opinion that it may not be right. Then you report that to the nearest police station that you had interacted with John Brown, number, rank, X, Y, and Z, and an investigation will be launched to see whether or not this is a legitimate police officer. Now, if there's somebody from the public who does that, that is you're purporting to be a police officer, right? And law enforcement imposter, how you should say, yeah, you're making yourself imposter, right? And you can be charged for that also.
And I think this is one of those things where, you know, we both the public and officers have to understand you can't just shake the responsibility on either side. Report it when you have a clear-cut situation, and officers need to give out the information because you have to kind of set that precedent. It will also help because I'm sure, well, at least for myself, if an officer is forthcoming with that information, it's easier for me to trust the officer.
Exactly.
And it's easier for me to obey more or less any and everything that the officer says without second-guessing them.
But ASP, with just about 2 minutes left before we have to break for news, we welcome you to the program. We are most pleased that the TTPS has reached out to Talking Points, that you are here continuously every Monday. We're grateful for that. This information and these types of communications, this level of communication is what we beg for and plead for. However, when all is said and done, although this is a great initiative, I'm trying to figure out whether or not the viewers this morning are feeling safer knowing that the TTPS is still communicating with them. Because as much as we're seeing all this and whatnot, again, I go back to the fact that there are 18 murders over this weekend. It seemed like a very long weekend with the number of murders that we had. I don't know how much this helps the situation in terms of public confidence.
Well, I agree that there is always the question mark above the public confidence and how much these incidents of this nature erode our trust and confidence the public have in us in treating with crimes. But I can assure the public that we are in fact doing everything that is humanly possible to alleviate this type of incidents. What we are trying to, sometimes when we tell the public that this individual is known to the police, have been involved in X, Y, and Z, it's not that we are deflecting, but we are just trying to bring to the public attention and awareness that there are criminal elements outside there that are also in the public domain and associated with you. When you go to any event, there are criminal elements in that event also. They may not be criminal per se, into that they have a label across them that everybody will know. But you need to know the company that you are keeping and the type of friends and colleagues that you're interacting with, because the possibilities are that you may not be a criminal per se. You may just be an associate of these individuals, not knowing their background, or may know their background, and the risk associated with that at some point in time, you don't know, or you and I will never know, when someone has ill intent against an individual or already have premeditated that I want to shoot this individual. And in that incident in Damien Bay in Northeastern Division, that was premeditated, in that those individuals went there for a reason. They looked for the opportunity, as I said, to commit that crime. They already knew that they're going to shoot these individuals. They could have found them directly there or met them on the way out, but they went there with the intent to commit that offense.
Well, Acting ASP, thank you very much. I know you've agreed to stay for questions from the public.
Thanks.
So, ladies and gentlemen, you heard from the Acting ASP, and now we are going to open up the phone lines for you. We're going to take a break here now on the program. And when we return, the phone lines are open. We have the question of the day, but also the Acting ASP is willing to take questions from you. So stay tuned to Talking Point here on WESN.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fanzone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
The best birthday gifts are at dbesttoys.com. Shop for the best brands you love at the best prices. Like VTech, Leapfrog, Fisher-Price, Play-Doh, Hot Wheels, Barbie, Cocomelon, LOL, Baby Alive, Crayola. Visit us in-store at Forces Flagship MacBean. Shop online now at dbesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 32DBEST to order. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
There's a taste in the air everywhere. Feel the vibe cause it's something to share. Smooth, rich and creamy, you'll find it right here. Makes you smile, relax a while, it's fun and good cheer. Ooh, enjoy every scoop. Ooh, every taste will get you hooked. We have flavors that you love, a combination special. Come along, enjoy your treats. This is Uncle Pete's.
The Mary Immaculate Prayer Group and Friends presents its prayer breakfast on August 31st in aid of Monsignor Christian Pereira. The prayer breakfast begins from 9 a.m. at the Cathedral of Immaculate Conception. Cost is only $200. Come support the Cup of Gratitude in aid of Monsignor Pereira, August 31st.
Tickets are available at the parish office of the Cathedral of Immaculate Conception and the parish of Our Lady of Perpetual Help.
It may seem like the hardest thing to do right now, but we all need each other to wear a mask, wash our hands, watch our physical distance, and stay at home. We need you safe. Together we can make the difference. Together we can curb the spread of COVID-19. So let's be responsible in our actions. The Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross Society. Mission-based, people-focused, community-driven.
Welcome back to Talking Point here on WESN, the content capital. Once more with us, we have acting ASP Ashraf Ali, who is in the hot seat this morning because the phone lines are now open and I'm seeing a smile on your face.
Well, I mean, let's just remind people, we're asking what they thought of the Prime Minister's press conference. So it's not all about crime, although I would argue that a lot of the things the Prime Minister spoke about, the failures of our systems, our bureaucracy, our government, our policies are feeding into the crime. You don't have to say anything about that. That's our opinion on this side of the table. And I will just say again, let me remind viewers, I believe that the Prime Minister's presentation was obsolete, basically. It was way too late. It would have been fine 2 weeks ago. It would have been fine 2 weeks ago.
These are the things that send up my blood pressure. Anyway, ladies and
gentlemen. I'm the one with high blood pressure, so I mean,
yeah, exactly. So, anyway, ladies and gentlemen, again, the phone lines are open. The acting ASP is taking your questions this morning, but we've also posed a question to you, given that it is a critical time in our nation's history. What are your thoughts and opinions on the Prime Minister's press conference on Saturday? Now, something that we were mentioning off air whilst we were waiting your calls this morning is that summer vacation, as we refer to it down here, although we don't have a summer,
but summer vacation.
But summer vacation for the next 2 months, holidays for school kids, starts on Friday, and that is probably a bit more of a headache for you all as the TTPS. And we get your thoughts and opinions on that very shortly because we have a caller on the line with us. Good morning, caller.
Hey, gentlemen. Morning.
Good morning.
And I want to deal with that question.
Sure.
it was so stupid. I want to use that word, stupid, of the Prime Minister to try and use Section 34 to defend Reginald Amo and Reginald Amo's position. It was so ridiculous. And as you say, it's a mute. You could have come with that argument a couple of weeks ago. But to come with that now, no. The Prime Minister, and we need to keep it on the burner because this has nothing to do with being in trying to help out these people who are before the court. This is an Attorney General who did not do his job in a critical issue as this, which has been 14 years in the making, and it's time something we have to start to say, here we're going. We're not taking this. Time to go. We have to keep up this pressure. That is one. The other thing is, which was mentioned, but you see this STA, you looked at the STA results?
Yeah.
This is the genesis of the issues that you're trying to deal with the guests this morning here. This is the genesis where this is where it's starting. In the primary schools it's starting and it's coming up the road. And I have to defend them saying the police service is not to fix every problem. Every problem we have school violence now, the police. The police. Everything is the police. When there is a breakdown in the society, let me tell you something. Let me say this quickly. The police service took up the mantle when the scouts and the Girl Guides and them abdicated because you don't have all those groups anymore, or they in decline, and the police service started their youth clubs, and that has grown. That tells you that they understand the problem and they're trying on another level, not just the law enforcement level, but on the social level to try and rein in some of the delinquency that's happening in society. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Just to his point, and I think the value of those institutions, right now the Boy Scouts are a bit in battle with regards to a dispute over a parcel of land next to the Emperor Valley Zoo. I can't remember all of the details, but it is what it is. And if we wanna basically cut the feet out from under those institutions, then it just means more work for you all.
Well, Acting SP, we have another caller, but I have to ask you very quickly. Do you feel in your position, or generally the organization of the TTPS, do you all feel as though sometimes you're an easy target? Rhetorical question?
Yes, it is. I mean, every time you just hear it, after God is police, oh God call the police. I mean, it might sound ironic, it might sound laughable, we make it so jovial, but the reality is there. When something goes right, you don't want to commend the police officers for what they do good. Very few persons will commend the officers for their good work, and then you will hear the other side of the stories that we are getting paid for that. Fair enough, we are getting paid to do that. But when something goes wrong, you have everybody up in arms, being very critical to the police officers at the same time. I mean, we are faced with that. That's a job that we accepted. These are the criticisms that we expect to get. But realistically, we are doing plenty more than law enforcement. We are adding to the social element of Trinidad and Tobago. We are doing the social aspect of it, where a lot of the social units and social departments drop the ball. We have that responsibility, and we are taking up that responsibility, and we are not being acknowledged for that. Our youth groups, as I mentioned, our youth group, community policing aspect of it. We have now understood that there is need for mediation. We are trying our best. We are partnered with a lot of departments in the mediation department and social media for mediation and counseling. Things like land disputes, right? Yeah. We have partnered with, through our legal community clinics, where we have lawyers coming on board and helping to give information to the public, free of charge, might add, with that. So we are going into different areas outside of strictly law enforcement.
Yeah. Well, pause on that for now because we have another caller on line with us from Digger Martin. Good morning, caller.
Hi, good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, sir.
Assistant Superintendent Ali.
Good morning.
I just wanted to pertain to the question you asked about the Prime Minister's conference. I am disappointed. You know, I don't have to explain why, but the fact is, all our go-forward answers are very disappointed. As to Mr. Ali, Superintendent Ali, I know you're fighting a battle here that is not easy, and it is difficult to overcome something like this. But you've got to keep up the spirits and keep on fighting it. The Caribbean in the whole is very hard to please in these sorts of situations. And what I can advise you, if you listen, is that long ago I remember growing up that when police kept information about certain things, they were normally sending one or two officers into the area undercover and work along, and then they can pinpoint and even get evidence to bring it back to you. And that might be just a suggestion. I don't know if it makes any sense to you all. But that is what I'll have to offer, and I thank you guys for taking my call as normal, and enjoy your balance of your day.
Thank you very much,
Thank you,
sir.
Paul.
Thank you. Before we go to the caller's point, we have a caller on line with us from Shoguners. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Morning.
First of all, the Prime Minister's speech was totally useless. But I will give one example. He talked about agriculture, and he talked about regional initiatives. But we heard nothing about Trinidad. I, on this program, on a number of occasions, have given ways where we could have substantial increases in our agricultural input. We hear nothing like that. And if you go up on the Ministry of Agriculture website, you see nothing on it. As regards your guest, the last time we spoke, he quite properly pointed out that for the police to properly deal with the squatted and age driver and whatnot, the other government agencies must do their work. Now that is why you have a National Security Council. That they bring this, his minister can bring this to the other minister's attention. And that is why you need an annual administrative report, that these things will be highlighted. And since the annual administrative report should be on the police website, and the public can go and see it and see what is the problem they have, recommendations they have made to deal with it, and what is the result. Any questions today, gentlemen?
I think we're okay.
We will never disagree with annual administrative reports, Professor.
Thank you very much.
You is your guest.
Thank you. We have a caller on the line with us from Tobago. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Morning.
Your police, your PPTF representatives say that one murder is too much. And you also said that we have not reached crisis proportion. So I want to know, when is it crisis proportion if one murder is too much?
All right. Well, we'll give the officer a chance to respond. Thank you very much, caller. Well, the floor is yours. 3 points there. One from Digger Martin in relation to sending officers into the area. One in relation to government agencies and squatting. And very finally, of course, in relation to one is too much. So what do you deem as a crisis?
All right, so I will deal with the last one first, which is the hot topic at the end of the day. There's no, when I use the word one is too much, I'm sorry, we always look at one at the same time as too much. Now, one murder in any event is a loss of life. So it is in fact a crisis. And when you look at the context of the number of murders throughout the years, statistically, from a statistical point of view, it may not be considered to be we in a crisis situation from a statistical point of view, but from a country point of view, 1, 2 is a crisis. Any loss of life is a crisis, and we do not want any loss of any lives. So from those two perspectives, it may not be, you may not be able to quantify what is a a number that we will be satisfied with, because we don't want to say, it's dangerous to say, hey, for conversation purposes, that you would say, okay, we are satisfied with this number as opposed to this number. It's dangerous to actually put a number and say, okay, we are comfortable with that, because there's adverse reactions towards that, and then there's a lot of criticism will be coming to say that we are comfortable with a number. We are not comfortable with any particular number. From 1 to the number at the end of the year, it's critical to us, and we are trying our best to make sure that, but when you jump up on a bandwagon and continue to say, when you are in a crisis, it means that what? It means that you are no longer able to manage whatever situation that you are in. And we just can't use the word crisis very openly, right? Because it has been managed right now by the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. And the commissioner, our acting commissioner, indicated that we are not in a crisis situation. It is manageable. It all depends now on the type of measures that we are going to put in place for the rest of the year and how we manage what we are currently in.
I think the key thing for people to understand, or the easiest way to understand it, might be to say we will never have 0 murders. That's almost impossible in a country as large as ours. We're going to have murders. We'll never have 0. So it's a grim reality that, again, it's why you don't want to talk about it and quantify it as, well, 10 is fine. It's not really fine.
Well, we actually have 2 callers in the line. The first from Digger Martin, and then we'll take the call from Marval. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Mr. Shah, Mr. Paul, and to the superintendent.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay. A quick question to the superintendent with respect to confidence in TTPS. And I'm meaning meaningful response from the police. What I mean about that. There's a statistic or metric that police gives us with respect to their response. The receipt, you make a complaint and they put it down in a receipt. A lot of the times, and I've seen it, when you give them information, they do 2 things. They put information as opposed to you saying you have a threat. And from my vantage, I believe to put information to not to do the hard yards. Now, that metric the police is using, what percentage of it is meaningfully inquired about and closed down? I've never heard that they say 60% of the complaints received, we have closed it out. That is, in terms of quality system, that is a critical thing. The other thing I want to know, and this is PR, when should we expect a meaningful response from the Commissioner of Police to apologize to the Rich Plain environment? And the last one, quickly, CARICOM. We and our Prime Minister has been focusing on Venezuela to help out Trinidad, the Dragonfield to get gas. Why doesn't he focus? Because the whole of CARICOM raising the flag want to go to the CCJ. Why doesn't he focus on CARICOM being a unit to start producing oil and gas for the world? Because we have big reservoirs in Suriname, we have big reservoir. We could integrate. Trinidad could become a player. We have an abandoned refinery right there. Why don't he deepen the relationship so we could move forward instead of putting our eggs in the basket and they are not hatching on the Dragon Field and the Manatee Field? Let us deepen the CARICOM single and economy market and forget all of those things about Venezuela. I don't think it will bear fruit. Because if the Americans close the door in Venezuela, Trump has already described us already. Black leaders of countries, you remember use the S word?
All right, caller.
Have a nice day.
All right, caller, listen. Listen to me very, very carefully. Specifically to you, caller from Digger Martin. Make your point. Be respectful about it. You see your last comments, they will not be tolerated on this program.
Yeah, it's not even up to us. We can't afford to have it.
Even whether or not it was up to us or whether we could afford to have it, it doesn't matter. You see that level of nonsense? We do not promote it. We do not condone it. So make your points, make your comments. You're a regular caller. But if you come with that level of nonsense again, your calls will be cut. Be respectful. This is Trinidad and Tobago. If you have your opinions, be very respectful about it. No more of that nonsense.
Quick with regards to CARICOM, I think the answer to that is simple. Dragonfield is ours. We'll earn more individually from it, as well as the fact that it's difficult to get the entire Caribbean to pull together in one direction. It's a lot more perspectives. Just look how hard it is to get all Parliament to do anything.
Caller on the line with us from Tunapuna. Good morning, caller. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. I'm calling from Tunapuna. The question pertaining the Honorable Prime Minister statement, where I am at no time surprised, but very, very much disappointed in his continued barrage of comments whenever he wants to defend the indefensible. Now, but I grant he went on that direction, because he reminds the nation about what his responsibility was when the landed issue was. He reminds the nation about the carting away of material from the Scarborough Hospital to landed. Most of the population has forgotten about that. But be as he is so thin-skinned and tries to chastise the reporter, I think he raised up something there that the population would be well educated about at this point in time, because most of them would have forgotten that issue where they were moving material from the Scarborough Hospital to Landgate, which he said owned by his wife. Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller.
Thank you. All right. Acting ASP, we do apologize. We know we've had you here, and there are questions that have been posed to you, so forgive us. And I know you were taking a record of the questions, so go ahead.
Right. So as a result, the commissioner's response to the Diego Martin residents, I think the commissioner will determine, based on all the situations and all the information that he has available to him, when he would make the appropriate comments. That's the commissioner's responsibility at that point in time. We are trying our best at every level in our interaction with the public to build confidence, build the confidence in the public and the confidence the public has in us. Yes, we do have some internal challenges, as the caller mentioned, with respect to when persons come and make a report of information, because we have a way that it is structured as to, we will predetermine the type of report that you make. Yes, you may call something a threat, but when you report it and there is not sufficient evidence or sufficient information for it to be considered a threat, it's a report of information until such time. Right? And these things have follow-ups, and we are trying to get involved in the follow-up action aspect of it, where we allow persons to come in, because a lot of persons sometimes come, they make a report, and when you call them to get a follow-up, they don't want anything about it. Mm-hmm. They don't want any action, anything at all. Want the individual. So that's something we have to look at. All right, and so it's twofold. When you make your report, you will be willing to engage in a follow-up, give the police some information as to what is transpiring with your information, so we can do the follow-ups at the same time, right? I know the caller talk about undercover officers. It's something that we continuously, we hear about it, but there's a lot of risk associated in Trinidad and Tobago, which is a small country, small island, I should say, that you really cannot hide and do real undercover work in Trinidad and Tobago. There is some level of undercover that you can do. It depends on the degree and in the circumstances as to how we want these officers to operate. So you will see that officers and our CID officers and plainclothes officers will be patrolling the streets, in the busy streets, in the malls and things, in plainclothes. And not a lot of persons may know them, but they are still doing quote unquote, a degree of undercover work. Mm-hmm. But to carry somebody to what we consider in the movie what is undercover, stay away from the police environment and get infiltrated into these criminal elements, it's a risk that we will, it's a risk factor. It's not any officer can go do that. It's a specialized type of training that you have to go through. and there has to have some level of control and handling, in the case maybe, to this aspect of it. We do have officers who operate in that capacity, not to the extent, right? But you would not know. So the public would not even know. We don't go out and say that we have undercover officers because it's a risk that it will put the ones that are actually doing undercover work at in that risk. So yes, it's something that we look at, but not everybody would. You wouldn't even know that. I would not even have knowledge of who the officers may be doing some undercover type functions in the police service. So we have what they call overt and covert operations, right? Covert operations have different levels and different tiers depending on the nature of the offense, the crimes that you're trying to operate with, right? I know this individual talk about the administrative report. It's something that I am sure that the commissioner he's listening, will be aware of, that we do in fact submit reports. He do in fact submit reports to the Ministry of National Security Council as the challenges that they have, and it be treated from that perspective. It may not be public knowledge to be placed on the TTPS portal because of the nature of the reports that he may have submitted. So until it becomes public information, then it may come on the TTPS portal, but there are information that goes to the Security Council that will be addressed at that level.
Okay. I think the small island thing, we need to, small islands, but we need to understand it's not a disparaging thing. It is what it is. Now, New York City has 8 million people in population. They have a couple thousand police officers, but there's also backstop by the FBI, which is a federal agency, by the DA, which is a federal agency that is outside. So one of the interesting things is, yes, it's easy to be undercover when you have an outsider complete to the environment, and we don't have that to afford it to us. And the question is, can some simulation or simulacrum, some Caribbean agency, perhaps a corporation, who knows? There are different ways to tackle an issue. Sometimes you have to go outside the box, but that's a whole that's a next level of discussion.
Well, my final comment in relation to CARICOM, oil and gas, energy, that has been explored over the years. It will continue to be explored, but TNT is, of course, looking at building its own relationships independent of CARICOM diplomatically. I think it was last week we signed a MOU with Suriname in relation to energy and energy resources. So it is something that is being explored. But this is where we're going to have to conclude this morning's discussions. First of all, let me thank Acting ASP for making yourself once more available, not only to the program, but to the viewers, to the public, for taking their questions and responding. So thank you very much, and keep up the great work, sir.
Thank you very much. And for all those persons out there who continue to support the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, I want to say continue to lend us a support. We will also continue giving the support to Trinidad and Tobago. It is, in fact, a challenge for us, but we are doing as best as we can in our current situation. The more support that we get from the public, we appreciate it, and we look forward for the continued support.
And Mr. Shio Michael Small, well, today's a good day to have a good day.
Yeah, I mean, it was a beautiful day when I drove in. I'll just say this with regards to a crime plan or anti-crime initiative. Saying that we should fire the Prime Minister isn't really an anti-crime initiative. Those who know what I'm talking about will know. We need a little bit more detailed and solution-oriented suggestions than that.
Okay,
and I'll just leave that.
Fire the Minister of National Security.
I mean, I hate to say it, but that actually has some merit. It shouldn't.
I don't know. You've heard more from us this morning than you have over the long weekend, so.
It's not supposed to be like that, but in that case, it's hard to yeah.
It's a good suggestion. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us once more on Talking Points. We appreciate the audience and all those who contributed to the conversation. And as always, well, today's a good day to have a good day. Be safe, be very careful in all that you do. And as always, be your brother's keeper. Tomorrow's a new day. We'll see you again. Bye-bye for now.